It has become a meme in the science-based community that fatigue is killing your gains. Anything above 4 reps is cardio, don't perform more than 1 set per exercise because calcium ions, bro. And if you train more than 4 times per week, you're not only accumulating junk volume, but you're not training hard enough because how could you recover from more than 4 sessions per week? And it all came to a boil when JP posted a rant about the science-based nerds on his Instagram. Before going into the details, the message in short was simply, you're small because you're overthinking every single detail. You're small because you're scared of fatigue. You're small because you're afraid of hard work. Fuck all of that. Just train hard, bro, and get stronger. That's it. All the old meatheads thanked and praised him for rescuing the gym community by putting these science-based nerds into the fucking spot. But the question is he actually right about what he's yapping about? Let's find out. To get to this, I didn't ask about range of motion or rep ranges over and over. Those questions didn't exist 20 years ago. The gym community is more confused than ever, and I completely agree. Everyone is posting content for the sake of content without having any right to it, spreading absolute horrendous misinformation just for the sake of views and profiting off of that for their own sake without keeping the intention pure by educating others on the best possible way to train. So it is completely understandable, in my opinion, that people are more confused than ever on how the range of motion should look like. Dr. Mike Israel, I'm talking about you with your weird stretch code, the rep ranges, the best split, and so on. I can go on and on about every single topic. Everything is confusing as fuck right now. Content and having more access to knowledge is fucking great and I love it. That's why I'm a content creator and I want to spread the best possible info out there. But it can be absolutely a double-edged sword as a beginner, and if you're not that educated and you want to educate yourself, you can separate what is good information, what is bad information. And even if you have the perfect training plan, perfect nutrition plan or whatever, just one Insta reel or one YouTube video, whatever, can completely distract you and mislead you into a wrong direction, sending you into the spiral of distrusting yourself and your own process. Those questions didn't exist 20 years ago and didn't need to, because there were people who had the size that I wanted. So I emulated what they did, and guess what? It worked. The appeal to authority logic is completely flawed and does not make any sense in practice. For example, my idol is Arnold, so to look like him, of course, with a monkey brain of ours, I emulated his training style, and guess what? I looked like shit. And you know why? Because I'm not a genetic anomaly and I don't take steroids. So if you are those two things, sure, just do what the greats did and completely turn off your brain and you will make progress. But as a natural, you have to be extremely, extremely lucky to have an idol that is not just a stupid meathead, but is actually smart. For example, Terence Ruffin, one of the best Olympians ever in the modern age, he is very knowledgeable. He has a great training plan, a great coach. So if you emulate his style, you will make crazy progress. But on the other side, if your idol is Samson Dada or whatever, I can assure you, you will quit the gym after a few years because you won't see any progress. Or not the progress that you wish to see. Another example, if you were to choose me as like the person to emulate, I've always had a shitty chest and crazy strong triceps. First of all, the biggest factor is genetics. And second of all, I've been lucky that I've trained my triceps perfectly from the get-go while fucking up my chest training from the get-go. Most people would rather listen to what I've got to say for triceps training as just such a strong point in my physique, while almost no one would listen to what I've got to say for chest, even though I've got the most experience with bringing up my chest as it's been my main priority. So I've gained more experience and more knowledge due to having to modify and optimize every single detail for chest training, while I could just do anything for my triceps and it would grow. And this is simply because I appeal to authority. And you can already notice that this just doesn't work in practice. Again, as a coach, my knowledge is equal across every single muscle group and every single factor to bring up every single muscle group. But I've had more personal experience with bringing up my chest than my triceps. But again, most people wouldn't listen. We didn't ever talk about fatigue. Ever. If all you do is train, eat, sleep, and take huge amounts of gear, you don't ever have to worry about fatigue as much as someone who is, first of all, natural, who has a normal ass job, especially if it's a demanding job like construction work, and if you're not a professional bodybuilder. And guess what? That is 99% of the people that are actually watching gym content. You still don't ever want to be scared of fatigue. But don't just go into the gym and do some unga bunga bullshit.
I'm going to do whatever it takes.
Accumulating unnecessary amounts of junk fatigue without unnecessary benefit. It will not only hold back your progress, but your whole fucking life.
It's basically an 8-hour arm workout.
I set lift targets, really fucking high ones. I knew that if I could overhead press 5 plates aside, I would have bigger delts than anyone else. Oh wow, it worked. I knew that if I could get my stiff leg deadlift to 8 plates aside, I would have bigger erectors. Oh wow, that worked too. I agree that setting high lift targets and aiming towards those over months, years and decades is the most important goal out of any to set and will get you very far no matter how you train. But just because you optimize your training to be as little fatiguing as possible does not mean that you're just going to the gym, going through the motions without intentionally wanting to get stronger. It's actually the complete opposite way. The literal sole reason why we avoid fatigue in the science-based community is that accumulating unnecessary amounts of junk fatigue literally prevents you from actually reaching your maximum strength potential. Here's an example with a full body split and how junk fatigue can impact your recovery and therefore progressive overload. We know that everyone can perform at least 1 set per muscle group 3 times per week. Most can even perform 2 sets per muscle group 3 times per week, if you're at least semi-locked in. But only a few select people with perfect recovery and perfect conditions can recover from 3 sets per muscle group 3 times per week, as it's literally your MRV, maximum recoverable volume. And if you don't recover in time, you won't progressively overload. Therefore, will not get as strong as humanly possible and therefore not build any muscle. So adding just 1 or 2 sets may seem small, but when training with a higher frequency, it can literally make or break your gains. But still, don't be scared of fatigue and just stick to the lowest possible sets, as it is safer to not fuck up your program like that. But push the volume to the max while still being able to recover just in time without it impacting your ability to see progressive overload occurring. Now, let me expand this example just a bit further. Most people can recover from 2 sets per muscle group 3 times per week if you were to train in the 4 to 8 rep range. But it may not be possible if you were to perform 8 to 12 reps or even worse, 12 to 15 or beyond, as junk reps are just as fatiguing as junk volume. So if you were to keep the higher rep range just because you enjoy it more, you would have to reduce the number of sets you perform to see progressive overload occurring. That is not a good thing, as less sets equal less stimulus. Besides that, JP himself actually trains almost as optimal as it could ever get. He trains with very low volume, with higher frequencies, with very, very stable movements. He even keeps reps in reserve, even though he's grunting all the time. He looks fucking badass with 10 fucking plates hanging off his chest press instead of a deadlift bar, but he's still managing his fatigue very, very intelligently. So his argument here doesn't make any sense, as he himself is Mr. Optimal, mixed in with a little bit of a bro. I focused entirely on the work and didn't give a shit about what I felt and endured to reach the lift targets that I set out for myself. I completely agree that you should not care about how fatigued you feel and just do the work that is required. But the fatigue that I'm talking about in my videos, or what everyone in the science-based community is preaching, is not essentially a feeling-based sensation. For example, if you were to train 6 times per week with junk volume and primarily heavy compounds that beat you into the fucking dust, yes, you will probably feel fatigued as shit. But if you're at least in the optimal zone of training, not doing junk volume, not doing junk sessions, training 7 times per week, but choosing a smart split where you have enough rest days, not doing stupid, crazy amounts of free weight compounds, which are fatiguing as hell compared to machine variations or isolation movements in general. If you're training smart and not like an absolute meathead, fatigue isn't a feeling sensation anymore. But it is more so, again, as I said in the previous point, your ability to progressive overload as best and as fast and as effectively as you could possibly progressively overload. But fatigue literally impacts your ability to see progressive overload occurring in the most efficient and effective way possible. Therefore, getting as strong as humanly possible, as JP suggests, is the most important thing, which I completely agree. But again, the whole point of minimizing fatigue is that you can actually get as strong as you could possibly ever get. For example, me, I've been training for like 6 years now and I've built a pretty good physique, and I'm still progressively overloading every single session by at least 1 rep, or adding just a slight biscuit of 0.5 kilos onto my lifts, and I'm doing that every single session 2 or 3 times per week with my split, compared to a few years back where I wasn't nowhere near the amount of muscle that I have now, and I've been training like an absolute fucking idiot. And guess what? I didn't see progressive overload occurring like I do now, because I've gotten smarter and have minimized my fatigue. Wow. it worked. I cannot express how much I hate this app now and all the complete utter wank that I read from people with no muscle, advising people with no muscle. I agree that there are lots of young boys, especially on TikTok, who have no muscle, no experience, who are just regurgitating the information that they read from other bigger science-based guys without even understanding the underlying principles, mechanisms of why the stuff that we preach actually works. But again, the appeal to authority, fallacy, does not work in practice. What if a smaller dude who has been only training for like 1, 2, or maybe 3 years as natural, who's not the absolute biggest, is literally the Nikola Tesla of bodybuilding education and the smartest fucking guy that will ever grace the earth, but he's been only training for a few years and he's a natural. Of course, he won't be the absolute biggest on the social media platform where everyone is blasting huge amounts of steroids and who has been training for 10 plus years. Of course, those idiots will be bigger than the smarter natural kiddo who has been only starting training a few years back. In my personal experience, I've learned much more about how to actually build muscle in the most efficient and effective way possible by people who you would consider a small, natty, pencil neck, science-based nerd. And the most important factor for recognizing a good coach or a good educator is simply if they're natural. Most natty guys have to literally optimize every single detail and be as perfectionistic as possible with their training, with their nutrition and everything, and stick to the game plan for 5, 10, or even 15 years to see crazy amounts of growth happening. The natty game is slow, so that means they have much more experience than the steroid abuser who can just inject himself with crazy amounts of gear and get huge results with that without even needing a second thought on how to optimize the training to be as effective as possible. Who would you put your money on? On the natty or the steroid guy? Ban these shit conversations from your mind and focus entirely on the work. It's a small person thing to find 20 ways to distract himself from the fact that they are too much of a fucking pussy to get after the sets and set huge lift targets. As if informing and educating yourself in your free time to get smarter about your training, your nutrition, or whatever directly means that you're immediately training like a fucking pussy. Most science-based lifters that train like a quote-unquote pussy with isolation movements and just 4 to 6 reps train much harder than your typical 10 to 15 compound meathead that is grunting his fucking lungs off but has never heard or experienced mechanical tension.
Wow. Ooh. That hurts. That hurts.
Essentially, training hard. Just because you're grunting and it feels hard doesn't mean that it actually is hard for your muscles. The set has actually been hard if your concentric speed slows down significantly. But I agree to some extent, don't get distracted by every single thing that you see. Don't get fear of missing out and running after every single shiny object that you see on your next reel, on your next video or whatever. But if you're intentionally trying to find new information and trying to implement it right away in a good manner because something doesn't work for you right now, instead of switching things, although they do work, you're in a good spot. Just because you're informing yourself in your free time does not mean that you're immediately a pussy. Doesn't make any sense, bro. We didn't talk about not doing the work because motor unit recruitment declines as sets go on. Fuck off. I agree that most optimal guys have become way too minimalistic with the training, just to be as efficient as possible. Because fatigue, calcium ions, and motor recruitment, bro, shut the fuck up. Like, you won't die if you do another exercise or another set, to some extent, of course, but you get the idea. I believe that you should push yourself to your maximum possible capacity within the optimal training zone so that you can be absolutely fucking sure that you will reach your potential. And if you just want to be as efficient as possible with your training and not reach your maximum possible bodybuilding potential, I congratulate you. It has never been this fucking easy to build muscle and get jacked without spending a lot of time in the gym if you follow the right information. Just perform 1 to 4 sets with 1 or 2 exercises, 2 or 3 times a week, and you will get there easy. Just do it and do more of it and more again until you're battered that you can't get out of bed. But why don't you just train smart and hard? You should not be fatigue maxing so that you cannot get out of fucking bed because you just want to do more hustle, sigma, male Grindset or whatever. Trust me, it ain't that deep, bro. You can optimize your training, be smarter about it, and have a life outside of the gym, you know? Trust me, I've been in that sigma, male Grindset and working myself into the ground a lot of times in my life. and that shit won't get you anywhere in the long term. So here's practical advice instead of just calling a bunch of useless cunts. Whatever you lift now for 4 reps, you must get it to 12 reps ASAP with 0 change in form, and then by this time next year, you must have increased your load on the bar by 50%. That is doable, I promise you. Increasing your load on exercises by 50% is completely unrealistic and bogus. You should not expect that if you are not a complete newbie, which therefore it would be possible, but if you're watching this video, I can assume that you're not. And if you're not in your first year of your first cycle or whatever, there it could be possible, but if you're a natural, a few years into your training, do not expect increasing your load by 50%. But I do agree that you should absolutely aim for completely unrealistic weight standards, but not in short term, like JP is suggesting, but over a longer time span. Aim for something crazy, like a 4 or 5 bench in 10 years time. Yeah! Aim for a 3-plate weighted wide grip pull-up in 10 years time, and aim for a 6-plate stiff leg deadlift in 10 years time. Expanding your scope from the short term to 10 years may seem daunting, and I completely understand that. Just chunk that down into a 1-year goal, 2 years, 3 years, and make it accessible. Still make the goal slightly unrealistic, but somewhat achievable, so that you can actually push yourself to your max and just focus on your next step. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, until you reach that 10-year mark, where you will be strong as a fucking motherfucker, okay? Be a savage and attack your sets, and put all this insane noise out of your mind. Are we trying to get big here, or are we just talking about it? If you train with burning passion for the gym, and you go absolutely ham on every single set in every single session that has ever existed, everything that you do, even if it's not the most optimal thing, will get you so fucking far, okay? But it depends on how far you want to go. So why not just combine this absolute passion and going crazy in the gym with getting a bit smarter about the training and reaching your maximum possible muscular potential via optimizing training in the most efficient and effective way possible. If you're interested in that, check out my one-to-one coaching and watch this video right here, or check out my pre-med programs where you get 5 different programs for the price of 1. See you, brother, in the next video.